December 1944. The Western Front was no longer a line on a map, it was a moving pressure. Collapsing villages, flooded roads, frozen forests, and exhausted men advancing one hedgerow at a time. American units pushing through eastern France and into the German borderlands were no longer meeting organized defense everywhere. In many places, the war ended quietly. White flags, hands raised, weapons left behind in doorways. But not everywhere. Outside a small, half-destroyed town near the Saar region, an American infantry company halted at the edge of a narrow road lined with leafless trees and burned-out wagons. Recon patrols had reported a German rear guard element holding a cluster of stone farm buildings ahead. No artillery fire, no movement, just silence. Silence in late 1944 rarely meant safety. A squad was sent forward cautiously. The men expected either nothing or a quick surrender. Instead, a single rifle shot cracked through the cold air and struck the dirt near their feet. Then another, controlled, deliberate. They pulled back. The company commander sent a runner. The Germans were still there, and one of them was in charge. Through binoculars, an American lieutenant spotted him briefly. He stood in the doorway of the largest building, wearing a long coat, field cap pulled low, pistol holstered, binoculars hanging from his neck.
He wasn't shouting. He wasn't firing wildly. He was watching. Captured prisoners from earlier that day had mentioned him in passing. A major, an older officer, a veteran of the Eastern Front, someone who had already decided how this would end. A loudspeaker was brought forward. A German-speaking corporal was ordered to call out. The message was simple and by the book. You are surrounded. Lay down your arms. You will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. The response came after a pause. A single rifle shot fired into the air, then nothing. The Americans waited, then called again, louder, more explicit. This time the answer came in German, calm, almost polite. The major refused. He stated that he was an officer of the German army, that his orders were to delay the enemy, that he would not surrender his position. There was no shouting, no insults, just a statement of fact. The lieutenant lowered the binoculars and looked at the men around him. They were tired, wet, cold. Some had been moving for nearly 72 hours with little rest. None of them wanted a firefight over a farm that no longer mattered strategically. But the road did. Higher command was notified. The reply came back quickly. Do not bypass. Do not leave a hostile force in your rear. Resolve it. The Americans prepared for an assault. Mortars were brought up, but not fired yet. The company commander hesitated. He had learned, like many officers by late 1944, that not every problem needed to be solved with immediate force.
Another attempt was made. A white cloth was tied to a stick. An American non-commissioned officer, unarmed, walked halfway down the road, hands visible. He stopped at a safe distance and called out again. This time, the German major stepped fully into view. He did not raise his weapon. He listened. The NCO repeated the surrender terms. He emphasized medical care, food, warmth, survival. The major responded slowly. He said his men were exhausted, that they had no illusions about victory. But surrender for him was not merely a tactical decision, it was a personal one. He had already retreated too far, already given up too much ground. He would not retreat again. The NCO asked how many men he had. The major did not answer. Instead, he asked a question of his own. How much time will you give us? The NCO returned to the company commander. The exchange was relayed. The commander considered it, then made a decision that surprised several of his men. He gave them 1 hour. 1 hour to reconsider. 1 hour before the Americans would advance.
The order was passed quietly. The men settled in. Rifles rested. Mortar crews waited. An hour passed slowly.
At the 40-minute mark, there was movement. A young German soldier emerged from one of the side buildings, hands raised. He walked toward the American line, shaking slightly from the cold or fear. He said the major had dismissed him, told him to surrender if he wished, that no one would stop him. Within minutes, 2 more followed, then another. None of them were shot. The Americans waved them through, searched them, wrapped them in spare blankets. At the end of the hour, the major still stood in the doorway. The assault began. It was brief, controlled, and overwhelming. Machine gun fire suppressed the windows. Mortars landed behind the buildings, cutting off retreat rather than destroying the structures. Infantry advanced in short rushes, using walls and ditches for cover. The Germans fired back, but weakly. Ammunition was low. Their resistance was symbolic rather than effective. Within 15 minutes, it was over. Smoke drifted through the yard. A German soldier lay wounded but alive, calling out for help. An American medic moved to him immediately, without waiting for orders. The major was found inside the main building. He was seated at a wooden table. His pistol lay unloaded beside him. He had removed his gloves carefully and placed them next to it. He stood when the Americans entered. He did not raise his hands until asked.
The American lieutenant, mud-strewn and breathing hard, looked at him for a long moment, then spoke through an interpreter. "Why didn't you surrender when you had the chance?" The major answered honestly. He said he believed surrender should be earned, not requested, that an officer's duty was to resist until resistance no longer had meaning, that he wanted his men to see that he did not abandon his post lightly. The lieutenant nodded. He had heard similar explanations before. Some made sense, others didn't. He ordered the major searched and escorted outside. What happened next was unexpected. Instead of being roughly handled or publicly humiliated, the major was offered a cigarette. He declined at first, then accepted. The Americans did not strip his insignia. They did not push, they did not shout. One of the enlisted men, noticing the major's boots were soaked through, quietly pointed him toward a fire barrel where prisoners were being allowed to warm themselves under guard. The major hesitated, then walked over. Later, during processing, the Americans learned more about him. He had served since before the war. He had lost a son on the Eastern Front. He had no illusions left. That night, he was fed the same rations as the American soldiers guarding him. When asked later by an intelligence officer if he regretted refusing to surrender earlier, the major paused. He said he regretted the delay, not the decision. He said the Americans had proven something to him, not by force, but by restraint. In the weeks that followed, the incident barely registered in official reports. A brief resistance, several prisoners taken, no American casualties. In the scale of World War II, it was nothing, but for the men who were there, it lingered. They remembered the officer who chose resistance even when it no longer changed the outcome. They remembered the choice to wait rather than destroy, to offer time instead of immediate violence. And they remembered that surrender, like refusal, was not always about ideology or loyalty. Sometimes it was about dignity. Sometimes it was about how a war ends, not in victory or defeat, but in how two enemies behave when the fighting finally becomes unnecessary. If stories like this matter to you, consider liking the video so they reach more people. Your support helps ensure these moments, often missing from the larger narrative, aren't lost to time.